Hi. It's so embarrassing when people read your bio. Really, really is. That's why I never do it myself. I feel like I'm a narcissist otherwise. It's such an honor to be here today. I am a new Christian in a lot of ways, and I have been spending a lot of time recently reflecting on my journey as a refugee. I come from a Muslim family. My family is Muslim, and we live in unity, mind you, Muslims and Christians, and we don't see the issue that everybody else seems to have with religion. But I have been reflecting on the hand of God throughout my life, and I think there's not a better time of his love or his grace in my life than my refugee journey, where I have seen truly his presence. I was born in Sierra Leone in the west of Africa, a little country that most people don't even think about. We don't make a bleep in most people's radar. And as a refugee community in Australia, we're one of the smallest, technically. And I always joke with my community that if I'm not in the room, nobody knows there's a Sierra Leonean. Yeah, maybe I am narcissist. I don't know. I should look into that. But it is true. We're that small, and we don't have the numbers, and we certainly don't have the controversies enough to be featured in people's radars. But I was born in Sierra Leone, and I am grateful that I was born in such a place. Yes, it sounds terrible when I then go on to tell you about the terrible things that happened in that place. But I am, because I wouldn't be who I am today if I wasn't born there. I was one of those lucky people who came from a family that had privilege in Sierra Leone. My grandfather was a chief. He was a Muslim missionary. He loved the Bible, even though he was a Muslim missionary. We can talk about that another time. There's a story there. But I come from a rich history of religious tolerance. I hate the word tolerance, but just religious unity, and not focusing on the differences, more focusing on the things we have in common, right, in my own family. But because my grandfather had privilege, that meant when war broke out when I was 3, I have a son who is 2 years, 6 months, and he will be 3 next year. And I look at him and reflect what my life looked like when I was 3. Such a huge difference between the life he's going to have when he turns 3 next year. When I was 3, war broke out in Sierra Leone. So I went to bed one day fine. Life was good. I had a great grandfather who was a feminist, believed in religious unity, believed in the equality of all people, but he was privileged and he had power. And that meant when the war broke out, we were targeted. Our family was targeted. So I went to bed a healthy, happy 3-year-old, woke up, and the world never looked the same again. For me and my mom and my sister who managed to escape that war, there are no words to explain to anybody in this room what that journey looks like. And the only glimpse people get in Australia of that journey for me is when my sign at work, my chair had this sign that says, "Don't creep on me," which I had to change because apparently that's a different thing from "don't creep up on me." Because English is my third language, so sometimes the subtles, they don't work for me. But it looked like it was a wrong sign, the original sign, so I changed it. But that sign was there because in a day, I usually would shout 5 times in fear because somebody would come towards me without me seeing them or approach me too quickly, and those triggers go off. Triggers of a little child who spent 8 years displaced in Sierra Leone. And I have some of my memories, some I don't have, some I never want to have back, of feeling unsafe. I know what it means to be unsafe. I know what it means to lack and go without. No child should have to face that, but I know that feeling. So for me, that sign on my chair means the world to me because it helps me throughout the day to ensure that the feelings of being unsafe are not triggered by people accidentally. My mom, with my little sister, who was just a baby on her back and me next to her, managed to get us out of Sierra Leone, but it took us 80 years to get out. A whole new experience as refugees that we don't talk about, being displaced in your own home because you can't get out of a hellhole. You actually can't get out. So you're stuck there, trying to find ways and planning and plotting, how do I get out? How do I go left when the enemies, when the rebels, when the soldiers who were meant to protect you are now being paid out to actually hurt you? Because that's the thing about war. Who is the good guy and who is the bad guy? In our war, we didn't have any good guys. The army that was meant to protect us sold out. So during the day, they were the army, and at night, they were the rebels. They were on the other side. There were no good guys. There was only survival of the fittest. And who has money and what you can use to bargain with. It took us 8 years to get out, but we did get out. And I was saying to somebody before how my mom didn't want us to end up in Guinea, which is close to Sierra Leone. Literally, they were our next neighbor. And I've been reflecting why we ended up in Gambia, which is 3 countries down. As far as my mom was concerned, Guinea wasn't safe. We had the same border as Sierra Leone where we were running from. So at some point, that war was going to spill into there. Why stay there? Why not look ahead? Smart woman. Get it from somewhere. So we ended up in Gambia, where there is no actual refugee camp or official one. I was just talking to somebody about that again. This whole system of thinking they're formally set up systems, and then they're non-formally set up systems. Because people were desperate. People were looking to survive. You create a community. You create systems for yourself so you can survive. We got to Gambia, and Gambians didn't want refugees in their country. They didn't want us there. Because as far as they're concerned, we took away. We just bled through their resources. What did we have to offer them? My mom worked as a teacher. But I looked around and saw so many other people, lack of education, poverty, which meant they couldn't actually work or support themselves. So then choices became limited. So they made decisions based on those limited choices. But I will never forget the day my mom came home and said to us, we have to go for an interview. Like, interview? Why do we have to go to an interview? She said, well, these white people are going to come and ask us a lot of questions. I said, white people? What white people? Never seen a white person in my life. She said, oh, okay, that's a complicated answer. The other people somewhere else were white. They don't like us. Like, oh, okay. But I remember my first meeting, and I remember my mom stressing for days before this interview. She's like, well, they need to work out if we're refugees. And as a child, I thought, well, we are. Isn't that good enough? She said, well, it's not as simple as Khadija, you saying you are, and then they say, well, good on you. We actually have to explain what we have gone through, Khadija, why we're now in Gambia, why we can't go back, why your aunties and uncles are all scattered around trying to get out. We were lucky we got out. The rest of your aunties and uncles are still in Sierra Leone, or some are now somewhere else. I said, well, okay. So what do we have to do in this interview? She said, well, you have to sit there, and this person is going to ask you questions, and I want you to be very calm and try to listen carefully and answer their questions. I'm like, okay. This is very stressful now. This is very stressful. But I remember when we walked in, this white man was sitting there on the other side, and we sat down and just thought, gee, he's different, isn't he, from me? Very different person. But then he started talking, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. This is not because I don't speak English. I spoke English. He had an accent, and you think I have an accent. He did. And it's something people don't pick up on. When we deal with people who are different from us, we're so focused on their point of difference and how it inconveniences us. We never think how we might have a point of difference that they're relating to. To that white man, probably he just thought we had the strongest accent he's ever heard. But that was fine. But we also thought he had an accent and couldn't understand what he was saying. So my mom said to just smile and shake my head and look at this. Whatever he said. And that was how the interview went for me and my sister. My mom did answer questions now. Don't worry. She did tell him what she had to say. We then had to come back and do a second interview. Apparently the first one wasn't good enough. We needed to verify our story and our experience. We needed to relive that for the benefit of this man to make decisions about our lives. So no, people don't just give us refugee cards. You're not a refugee because you say you're a refugee. Apparently a whole system out there needs to deem you worthy for even the title of being a refugee. You just can't be because you say you are, because you have had to escape war, because you can't go back home. That's actually not enough. That itself is very sad. So we had to relive our experiences for the benefit of somebody else to make important decisions. But we went through it. And then came the medicals, checkups that we had to do to make sure we were healthy, but I also think to make sure we didn't bring any diseases to Australia. Because yes, Australia can pick and choose who it takes, who's healthy, who's not healthy, who can contribute. Our war has been one of the most, I look back and I think about it. There were people who would ask us questions like, do you want long sleeve or short sleeve? And they weren't measuring you for clothes. They were deciding whether they were going to chop off your arm from there or there. So we have one of the largest numbers of amputees in the world. And I look at the population in Australia of refugees from Sierra Leone. I only know one man who's an amputee. They only took able-bodied people. Let's think about that for a second. There's only one man who lives here who is an amputee. And when you think that was a daily basis, hourly, where people were asked, long sleeve or short sleeve, arm or leg, and in front of your child, in front of your family, somebody takes a machete and just chops it off, because apparently you have no need for it. Or pregnant women being asked if are you having a baby boy or a girl, and being opened up so they can actually find out. That is what life looked like. But we went through medical, and we were deemed healthy and able-bodied. And I'm going to use that word because to just enforce the point I made before. People with amputees were not chosen. We were deemed healthy, and we were told we will wait for news. At this time, most of the refugee process had been America and Canada were the ones taking refugees. Australia just came into the game, and we didn't even know that, because I remember when we were told we were going to Australia, and ignore the Australia part of that sentence, we were going somewhere where we were going to be safe. We jumped, we danced. You know Africans, right? We got into the party. It was on like King Kong. You know, we were just like, oh, hallelujah. We praised. And then we're like, okay, then we calmed down and went, where the hell is Australia? Nobody's ever heard of that place. Where is that? It's in Africa? You're taking us back. It's not in Africa, it's somewhere else. And then somebody who was apparently very smart said to us, well, it's at the end of the world and there is nowhere else to go after that. Think about that for a moment as a refugee. So we're going to the end of the world and we can't even escape once we get there if we needed to escape? Well, I don't know about this anymore. We're not really sure. Can't we go to America? Now I look back, thank God we didn't go to America. Thank God. You were always looking out for me. Thank you, Jesus. But then after the excitement settled, we sat and my mom laid out the hopes and dreams she had for coming to Australia. She said everything we had been through was to get us to this place. And once we got here, we will be safe. There will be bombs dropping nowhere anymore. People won't be trying to kill us. We won't have to worry about our family going extinct, and we will have an education. And she will be able to deliver as a parent to us in her role to make sure we're provided for, safe, and we have an education, and we have a life. Those were a lot of ambitious hopes she had for us. It took us 3 days to get to Australia. We had to go through Gambia. We went to France. Can I count that staying at the airport all day that I was in France? I think I was. We got to Singapore, and I remember something happened in Singapore that always, memory is a funny thing. We went to the bathroom to get water, and the tap wouldn't open in the traditional sense of the word. Open it, hit it, because, I like hitting. I'm like, hit it, it's not doing anything. Then some beautiful person comes by and just slides their hand. I'm like, oh, hell no. This is what I have to put up with? This is just not going to, this is not cool. We got into the plane, got to Sydney, then landed in Adelaide. I would never forget it. It was on the 9th of June, 2001. We got to the airport, we went outside, and my mom and I and my sister just wanted to literally kneel on the floor, but we were scared people were going to stare at us, because, white people, they stare at you all the time. So we wanted to kneel, though, but we couldn't. But in our mind, we were kneeling, so we could put our hands up and just say, thank you, God. Thank you. And just breathe in, because we had been holding our breath for 8, 10 years. We were holding it. And then we got here, we could breathe finally. We are safe. we are safe. And I will never forget our first night going to sleep and then waking up and there was silence. No bombs, no gunshots, nobody trying to rape or kill us. It was just silence. 17 years later, every time I wake up, I take a deep breath and just appreciate that blessing. How many Australians can have that experience? We take it for granted. We had hopes and dreams for Australia. And let me tell you, being different meant some of those hopes and dreams were not going to come into reality for us because we were different. Never knew I was different. I was born in a place where everybody was black like me. Then we got into the bus and somebody said, "You're black monkey." It's like, what does that mean, Mom? What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. Went to school and got told to go back where I come from. Or people laughing at me because I have an accent. English is actually my third language. It should be my sixth language, but I dropped French. Yeah, I know. But being told people couldn't understand me, how, what I said. And when I get very excited and hyper, which I'm very calm right now, the hands start flying around. It's just like the hands are just doing something. It's like a dance of some sort. I couldn't understand this. And I remember one day saying to my mom, "Why are people treating us like something is wrong with us? I've never felt like something was wrong with me." But I did, because people were judging me based on something I couldn't even control or had no awareness could elicit such emotions from other people. And I remember never wanting to go back to school because I just thought it was too difficult. I was sitting in classrooms with kids my own age. They were 13. And we didn't have the same experiences. I was the kid who jumped every time there was a loud noise. Teachers looked at me like I was a freak. Throughout the day, I would cry for different reasons. Couldn't watch a lot of movies. If they had gunshots or violence of any sort, I would scream out of the classroom, end up in the sick room. And there are times when I just sat there and didn't see anybody in my classroom. I just saw people dying in front of me. I didn't see the people who were next to me. So I spent a lot of time in the sick room. I was in a school where everybody, the whole 600 students were all white. And there was by myself, because my mom thought girls would be less racist. I don't know where she got that idea from. I'm still waiting for the research that she read or somewhere. I didn't feel like those children. My innocence was stolen from me. I wasn't innocent. I saw the world as a dangerous place. And being in heaven, because that's what we felt like. We had come from hell. Being in heaven didn't take away the effect of those early experiences. So yes, I am that strange person who shouts throughout the day because people freak me out and loud noises freak me out. But I tried to settle. I tried to remember how lucky I was to be in Australia. And I remember when I got my citizenship, there are no words. Before that, we thought, okay, we're in Australia, but they can send us back anytime. Then the day we got that piece of paper, which to other people is a piece of paper, it wasn't to us. It was the seal, the promise that we truly were not going to be sent back. You'd be amazed at the amount of hours we spent thinking we're going to be sent back. That goes into that. My mom's like, don't say that, don't do that. They will send us back. We have to show these people we're worthy of their generosity. So if they're mean to you, suck it up, Khadija. You don't want to go to school because a bunch of little white girls are not nice to you? You escape bombs and trauma to get here, girl. You better put on that uniform. She's not very compassionate, as you can see. And get back to school. But I was lucky. She was right. We were so lucky. And we didn't want anything to take that away. So when we had that piece of paper saying we were Australian citizens, it's when we finally felt safe. Isn't that funny? That's actually when we felt safe. It wasn't when we got here. Yeah, we felt a bit safe. But that paper meant we were not going to be sent back to Sierra Leone to perish and to suffer. But like I said, life wasn't all good. Racism raised its ugly head all the time in different places, in different ways. But I got through it. And only because, and even to this day, it's still happening. But sometimes I think the racism itself, it's just a manifestation of something bigger, fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of people who are different from us, fear of not understanding people, not talking to them, trying to hear them, their stories, who they are, getting to the bottom of who people are. Instead, it's the superficial. And when you think about it like that, it makes it very easy, not always, but to take a step back and not react like the angry black woman. Sometimes I'm like, are you really talking to me? Okay, calm down, Khadija, calm down. Not here, stop it. Because I do sometimes want to defend myself, but it doesn't always get me anywhere. I decided at some point Australia wasn't going to be my home because I was in Australia or had a piece of paper. Part of making something home is participating in that home. Being active. Citizenship should be an active thing, not, I guess if you're born being a citizen, you might take that for granted, but citizenship should be something that's active. So I decided I wasn't going to be a citizen just on paper. Part of being grateful for what Australia has given me, but was also partly wanting to fit in and truly feel that Australian spirit. So I started volunteering. I said yes to anybody who needed somebody. It was me, my hand was always, yes, I'll be there. What that gave me an opportunity was that it allowed me to see Australians as Australians, people, not this great divide of us here as refugees in our little box or in our little suburbs, but step outside of that and truly participate in the community and see people for who they were, learn, practice my English, show up. And through that came recognitions that Brad was listening. In some ways, you could say I was trying to earn my citizenship. And the problem is with that sometimes is that we have good refugees and then we have bad refugees. I've always been considered a good refugee, the other box. Shows up, appreciates Australia, gives it her all, which is why I've been recognized for these amazing things. They're really just saying, you're the good kind. You came here and you made something of yourself. You didn't isolate yourself in a little suburb where you all speak African and you won't talk to anybody else. You actually went out there and tried to mingle. You tried to fit in. And there's the other people on the other side. Well, those Sudanese boys, robbing everybody in Melbourne, and they're just difficult, aren't they? Why can't they take all the opportunities they have? But do you remember that sign on my chair? What we left behind doesn't stay behind. We come to Australia with a bag full of issues, stuff. Those don't escape, don't disappear. A child soldier doesn't forget he was a child soldier because he now has a nice home and food to eat. Survival is still kicking in. I need to survive. Different situations trigger that. I need to survive. Then he responds, or she responds. I'm not a Sudanese. Even though when I came to Australia, everybody thought I was. I'm like, who are they? Who are Sudanese people again? They're like, oh, they're Africans. No, they're not. Still fun to this that I didn't know they were Africans because I'm from West Africa. Doesn't mean I know the rest of Africa, what it looks like. People just assume we all know each other. No, we don't. We have one president. No, we don't. It's a continent, for goodness sake. So there you go. I didn't know they were Sudanese people. I didn't know people could be that tall. Honestly, just like you. I didn't know people could be that tall or that dark, mind you. So anyway, they're my people though. They're my people. We're one. We have Sudanese. They have unique experiences that are so sometimes very different from me. Sierra Leone had a 13-year civil war. Sudanese people have been in war before I was even born, before my mom was born. They have just always been in war. That's a whole different experience. What I want to say today is that we have all these services, church, community groups who care about refugees and want to engage us. You can't nitpick which part of our issues you choose to address. Which ones are comfortable for you? Which ones are more nicer package? We have trauma. PTSD is not just for veterans. I don't know a single refugee who doesn't have PTSD, whether it's diagnosed or not. It's just part and parcel of those experiences we have. And some have complex PTSD because of numerous exposure to trauma. And Australia, living here can be traumatic as well. Being told you're a black monkey. Not being able to sit in the bus next to somebody puts their bag because they don't want you to sit. Or being judged guilty of crimes before anybody even asks you a question because somehow your people, we're just inherently, apparently evil than other people. We shouldn't nitpick the issues we tackle when it comes to refugees. It does us harm when you choose the nice ones, the ones that are well packaged. Treat us holistically. Emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual, all of it. And if there's nothing you learned from me today, remember this phrase: nothing about us without us. We need to be the center of any work you do about us, with us. At the planning stage of a program, policy, at the middle, at the end. Lived experiences count. You could never phantom our experiences because you haven't gone through them. But what better way to reach out to us and let us help guide you? But also it builds capacity. We need our capacity to be built. This system, your whole world is foreign to us. We take that for granted. I know people have never caught a bus until they came to Australia. Kids who have gone up to the age of 15 never sat in a classroom with other kids. They're 15 and they've been put in year 10. They've never been in a classroom. Mind blown. They said they've never been in a classroom, never went to kindy, primary school, have no idea what you're talking about. To be effective, it's not good enough to just listen to us and go, well, that was a nice sad story and she made it good, tick refugee. Yeah, she good. Nothing about us without us. We need to be the center of every conversation, every policy, every work, every engagement. Build our capacity. My mom was a teacher. When she came here, she couldn't be a teacher. Then she went to study nursing. Her qualifications were not good enough. I know doctors, lawyers whose qualifications were not good enough for Australia. Build our capacity. Refugees come to Australia with a lot of hopes and dreams. And they're nice. The reality can be so different though. It can be, and that's not being ungrateful at all. It's a struggle every day, whether it's at work, at school, at my son's childcare. It doesn't matter. It's a struggle to be different. It's a struggle to want to fit in and just belong. But you have so much opposition. I just have to listen to the news to feel like something wrong with me. Then I go down and kneel and say, Jesus, I know nothing is wrong with me. My mom had a dream that me and my sister will come to Australia and have a good life. We're part of creating that good life, but we also need other people to be part of creating that good life for us. It's not just inherently on us to make that happen. Don't just say, well, we have all these opportunities and services. Why are they not utilizing it? Are your services culturally appropriate? Do you translate information into other languages? Do you use plain, simple English? You could want to encourage us and invite refugees all you want, but are you thinking of all the other barriers they face to just getting through your door? Do you think about that? And I'll leave you with one last story. So when I won the Charleston Young Leader or Achiever of the Year, the awards all just become one, honestly, but I'm terrible. The ceremony was at Semaphore at the old fort. There's an old fort there. And my mom and family were all excited because I think it was one of my first awards. Gee, our little Khadija is going to have an award. It was a big deal, okay? Everything's a big deal for my mom. It's like, yes, I won. I said, Mom, I hit the jackpot. So we get there, the mayor speaks, and then they decided to have gunshots. Yes. So we're standing there, we're all excited. And then this happened. My mom is under the chair. My aunties are like, where's the door so we can get out? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I didn't know this was going to happen. Don't forget, Australian Day celebrations where they give those awards are also when we have new citizens ceremonies. Somebody didn't think. Refugees, gunshots, forts. Nobody thought about that at all. That day wasn't about the awards anymore for my family. We went home and just remembered the reminder of being unsafe and the lack of consideration that was taken. And it wasn't that hard to have thought of that somebody would have thought of that point. We're going to give awards to refugees who come from war, and somehow we're going to shoot some gunshots in the air, somehow. No warning, no maybe message beforehand. Do you want to come? Come later. We would have come later once that was done. We were still going to participate. But that got lost. So the day was just a reminder of our constant need to be safe. But safety is like a journey. We're always trying to get somewhere, a goal to get to somewhere, and it seems like it's always out of reach somehow for us. But reflect on that at services, as people who provide services to refugees. How could you be that, like that council that day? You've invited refugees into your midst, into your offices, into your churches. But is there something you're forgetting about your engagement? Is there something you're missing in how you could make sure they do truly feel safe and welcome? What are you forgetting? What are you not thinking about? Thank you.